I'm Velma Bridges, co-founder of Pathway Caring for Children. Well, in 1969, Jim and I started dating, and from the very beginning, he would share about his work. He was working as a caseworker in a public foster care agency. He had a very large caseload of about 60 to 80 children, and sometimes I remember him saying that he felt like he was trying to put out a forest fire with a squirt gun. The work was very overwhelming, and in those days, foster parents had very little training, very little support, and so very often they would ask for the children to be removed. They would call and say, "Come and get this child because they've done things that I just can't tolerate." And so Jim began to feel like he was participating in like the foster care merry-go-round, he called it. And it was not helping the children to move from one place to another. But he could understand that caseworkers had large caseloads, they had little training. The foster parents had very little training and support, so it wasn't surprising that these placements didn't last and children had to move. But he began to think that there needed to be a better way. There had to be a better way. And so he began to think about what would be required to have a program where children did not have to move from home to home, where families could live through the problems the children presented, and where the staff, the workers, and the parents could all be a team and support each other and help each other through the difficult times. The other problem was that when there were no homes available for children, there weren't options. There was only the foster care with very little support option, and then there was the option of residential treatment, or in some cases, children ended up in youth correctional facilities. Sometimes these children, the only thing they had done wrong was run away from their placements or refuse to go to school. Things that would not be crimes if they were committed by an adult. Yet, because there weren't options, they sometimes ended up locked in correctional facilities. And this was very heartbreaking for him. And so he went to graduate school, and he wanted to learn all he could about how to develop a program that would be able to serve children and families in the way that would be most helpful to these children. He envisioned the program to be community-based, so children wouldn't have to be sent away and be locked up. He envisioned a program where everyone worked together as a team, and he also envisioned a program where everyone would operate guided by ideals, he called them. And those ideals were love, recognition, respect, security, success, personal involvement, and responsibility. And so he worked hard, gathered together a group of individuals from the community who became the first board members, and an attorney volunteered all the time needed to incorporate the agency. And in November of 1973, the first group home welcomed the first 4 boys. I remember that day, my grandfather, who was in his 80s at that time, and my mother were at the group home putting the handmade quilts on the beds that women from their church had made for the boys, washing the windows, and getting everything ready for these first boys to come. And Jim has said that he said he was very lucky because not everybody's dreams come true, but his dream came true on that day. And for that, he was very grateful. One young man who was the 5th boy to come, he grew up and became a helper himself. Jim told the story of coming home from work to see this young man's name in the newspaper and his picture. And he was helping to build a Habitat for Humanity home. And he later became a board member for Pathway, a major contributor for Pathway. When he was in the home, however, there were some difficult times, and he struggled to figure out what he was going to do with his life, and he was very strong-willed, but later on he was able to direct that strong will into starting his own business, and he was a successful business person. Well, one of the things that was very important to Jim, and he found it very important to train the foster parents and staff in listening, really listening to what they had to say. And he believed strongly that if helpers would truly listen, that we would help the youth and others as well be able to come up with their own solutions. So his approach was to listen and to guide youth in coming up with their own solutions. He also thought that was important for staff and to do with each other, to make decisions as a team and consider input from everyone, that everyone's input was really important. And together we could come up with the best solutions to difficult problems if everyone had input and we truly listened to each other. Well, from the beginning, I was very involved and supportive of Jim. He was definitely the visionary and the leader, but I was very supportive of him. And in the beginning, or early on, I didn't have a role as a staff member, but soon I found that I needed to quit the job that I had, and I worked part-time as kind of like a house mother. I was in charge of buying the food and of making sure meals were prepared, and many things that a mom person or a caregiver does. So I had that role for a while, and it was a part-time paid role. Jim used to say it was a part-time job with unlimited volunteer possibilities. So I helped out wherever I was needed. Then I didn't really do much for Pathway for a while when our two children were very young. But then there was the opportunity and someone was needed to coordinate the educational services of the child. The idea being we wanted an advocate to help these children get in the educational program that would be best for them. And I was an elementary teacher for 3 years, and I also had worked in the special needs services for children, as well as I had some training and experience in early childhood education. So I took that responsibility to take the youth, boys mostly at that point, to school, to enroll them and advocate for them and work with the teachers and the principals in helping the youth be successful at school as best we could. So that was my role for a while. And then I went to graduate school and in counseling and got a degree in counseling. And I served as like a supervisor for case managers for a while. I did counseling with some of the boys and girls in the program. And then I became the clinical director and supervised counselors. And then my current role has been as a part-time trainer for foster parents and staff. I was working with a girl who had a lot of difficulties, and many of our children have difficulty at the holidays, Christmas in particular. They're sad that they're not with their birth families at Christmas, and so it's hard for them to be able to manage all those emotions at Christmas. So I was trying to help her with this, and I asked her what was her favorite memory from Christmas with her birth family. Because, we want to include traditions and things that have been positive when they lived with their birth families to help them have a good experience and be able to celebrate those good times they had with birth families. And so she right away talked about this doll that she had gotten for Christmas and how that was a special gift, and she really loved this doll, but she didn't know what had happened to it. And that's an experience that often our children have, is some of their possessions, they get lost over time. And so I knew a woman who made dolls. And so I described this doll to this woman. And so she agreed to make a doll for this girl. And so I didn't have real high expectations, but, I thought she would make a doll that would be something like this doll, and it would be a nice gift for her. And what I didn't know was that this doll maker had a catalog with all dolls and the years they were out, and she made a doll exactly like the doll that this girl had treasured as a gift. And so when I gave this girl the doll, I can still remember her and I can still picture her jumping up and down with excitement and saying, "It's her! It's her!" And that moment was a very memorable and special moment for me, as well as for this young girl who's now a young woman. Pathway has changed in adding services that were needed and adjusting to new issues and problems to be able to address new things as changes in our culture and in our society and in the whole system of child welfare and mental health care. So we've adjusted, we've added mental health services which were needed so that children and families could get services sensitive to their unique needs. And we've added adoption services so that children could have forever families whenever possible. And then post-adoption services to help those families be able to continue to live with those children and work through the challenges that they're faced. One of the things that's really nice is that those same values are still values today, and those words are on the wall in one of our offices. And so that's one thing that I see that's remained consistent throughout all the changes we've made over the years is we're still seeking to treat each other and clients and families with those values: love, recognition, respect, security, success, responsibility, and personal involvement. My life has been changed, and the dream became my dream too. And being a part of that over the years has been pretty amazing. And I look at Pathway today with a lot of amazement. I've learned so much from foster parents, from other staff, from trainings that I've been a part of. And Pathway is certainly like a family to me. And, you know, with Jim's illness and his death in 2009, everyone was really like a family during that whole experience. And I'm very grateful for all of Pathway staff and foster parents who have touched my life.